Edinburgh. And despite huge lorries thundering through all day long, the town manages to maintain its old world charm. The Black Bull, a Georgian coaching inn where the male coach horses used to be changed, and it's still popular. The parish church, built in 1673, but it was at Lauder Bridge that the famous fable of the mouse that belled the cat inspired some of the Scottish nobility to hang 6 of the much-envied favourite courtiers of James III. And to add excessive insult to terminal injury, they did it before the king's very eyes. My first stop as I leave Lauder is at Thirlestane Castle, as the way does go right through the grounds. The castle strategically placed to guard the approach from the south to Edinburgh, and during the 13th century a large border fort stood here, but the central part of today's castle was completed in 1590. Once the home of the Earls of Lauderdale, who were a staunch Jacobite family, the castle has played a dramatic role in Scottish history, and the present owner is Captain the Honourable Gerald Maitland Carew. Good morning.
Ah, welcome.
How are you?
Very well indeed.
I presume you're the boss, the owner?
Well, that's one way of putting it.
Maitland Carew.
How do you do?
Jimmie McGregor, it's nice to meet you.
Well, you're a famous man, and I heard you were doing the Southern Upland
Yeah,
Way.
I hope you don't mind me scrounging around here.
Not at all.
Taking pictures.
No, no.
One of the things that confuses me about this place is that Thirlestane Castle is connected, in my mind anyway, with the Earls of Lauderdale, but your name's Maitland Carew. How does that come about?
Well, I'm the grandson of the 15th Earl of Lauderdale, who died, and he left me the castle. It's the Maitland family home, so it is separated from the present Earl of Lauderdale, and I, as the grandson of the 15th Earl, am a very fortunate person.
Yeah, you say you're very fortunate in the inheritance of this lovely building, but a lot of people who are in the same position find themselves, in fact, lumbered with tremendous problems, don't they?
Well, they are. One is fortunate to the extent, of course, that it is a tremendous inheritance.
Yeah.
But with that goes the responsibilities. Yeah. And a building of this nature, especially one with such great age, because parts of it will go back to the 13th century, some 700 years.
Yes. Of course, one of the problems is that the whole social system has changed, and with it the economic problems of running a place like this. How do you manage that?
Well, when I came here, when I first married in 1972, there were vast problems. We discovered over 40 major outbreaks of dry rot, and in fact the main tower of the castle was leaning at an angle and at any time could have collapsed through the middle of the building. And after a lot of work, and especially by my advisors, we managed to persuade through the Historic Buildings Council the government to give heavy grants for the restoration. And it probably in modern times is the greatest restoration of a country house that has taken place. In fact, over £1 million has been spent.
Thirlestane is certainly a gift to the painter. It is open to the public, by the way, and houses the Border Country Life exhibition. At the front of the castle, I come across a scene that seems as though it would be more suitable to the shires of England. But these are the Lauderdale foxhounds, and this is real fox hunting country. Wonderful Thirlestane Castle, lying at the very heart of Lauderdale. My route now takes me up onto the Lammermuir Hills, but instead of following the old herring road to Dunbar, the Southern Upland Way skirts the southern edge of the Lammermuirs and heads for Twinlaw Cairns. From there, it goes through Longformacus, Abbey St Bathans, and finally to the east coast and Coburn's Path. Roger Carr, the enthusiastic chairman of the Countryside Commission for Scotland, that's the body responsible for setting up the Southern Upland Way, has agreed to talk to me at the Twinlaw Cairns overlooking Watchwater Reservoir. Hello, Roger.
Jimmy, hello.
How are you?
Very well indeed.
Good.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you too. In fact, I'm delighted because I know that you're an exceedingly busy man. I'm very grateful to you for coming away up here to talk to me. Nice escape from the office, though,
Well,
isn't it?
especially on a day like this.
Yeah, wonderful.
Marvellous, isn't it?
Wonderful. Roger, as you know, I've now done all three of the Countryside Commission for Scotland's walks. I've done the West Highland Way, the Speyside Way, and now the Southern Upland Way. In fact, I've done all three twice because I did them for radio and television. Needless to say, I've enjoyed them enormously, as have thousands of other people. But there's just a couple of points I want to raise with you. Let's take this one, the Southern Upland Way. I find that there's quite big chunks of it where you're walking on the road. There's other bits where I'm walking through a green tunnel of forestry, and if you take this last leg now on the way over to the coast, we're going along the south of the Lammermuirs to Coburn's Path, and I'm surprised that you didn't choose that old, the ancient and much more romantic herring road. Now, how do you arrive at these decisions? Why do you do these things?
Well, we choose the best route we can in the first instance, and then we've got to negotiate that route with landowners, with farmers and foresters along the way, and we rely on their cooperation.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to vary the route to meet their very understandable requirements.
Yes. So you're not always able to go in exactly the direction you'd like to?
No, we can't.
Yeah.
But we always keep that in mind for the future.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, once you do fix on a route after great deliberation, is that it fixed for all time?
No, it is not. We would be looking to improve the route by negotiating a better route, negotiating the access for it with, as I said, the landowners, the farmers, the foresters.
Yeah. Do you have a clear idea of what your aims were when you started these walks? And if so, do you think you've achieved those aims?
Yes, we've a very clear idea of what our aims were, and that's to get people into the countryside to enjoy it. And I'm a great believer in the long-distance route. They have their critics,
yes,
but they've given, as you know, Jimmy, thousands and thousands of people the confidence to get out into this sort of countryside and enjoy it, and maybe give them the confidence to explore other areas, you know, on their own.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think I have to go along with that. I'm aware of the critics. I mean, I've been criticised myself for publicising them in a way, but I think I have to go along that the good they've done outweighs any
Yes,
harm.
and the problems I regard as challenges to be overcome.
Yes.
And they will be.
Where does it go from here? What's the next move?
Well, another long-distance route we're planning between Fort William and Inverness, up the Great Glen, but it'll be of a different type.
Different in what way?
Well, we've a project officer working on it at the moment, researching the route, but we're hoping to be able to find a series of link paths radiating out from Fort William, from Fort Augustus and other places on the route, which will in themselves be interesting little paths, but will together form the long-distance route.
That sounds like a good idea. I look forward to trying that one.
Well, it's another one for you to try sometime.
Yeah,
Jim.
sure. Do you want to go back to your vehicle now?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. It's nice talking to you, Roger.
Okay.
Yes. The twin log cairns are said to commemorate two brothers separated in infancy who unknowingly slew each other while fighting with opposing armies during a battle between the Saxons and the Scots. On the way down, Roger and I crossed one of the Duke of Roxburgh's grouse moors. These grouse moors are essential to the economy of the big estates. They're rented out by the day, and to shoot here cost £65 a brace, I've heard tell. You won't normally see many grouse about, as in midsummer you almost have to kick them before they'll take to the wing. Still, the moor makes for very pleasant walking. Kind of funny way to herd sheep, but it obviously works, and works rather well, I should think, and saves many a weary muscle. Neil Sinclair and his son Ian are sheep farmers at the nearby farm of Scarlaw. Watchwater Reservoir is one of the few stretches of water in this part of the country. But these grouse butts beside the reservoir are a bit of a surprise. I wonder what happens if you're walking along the road during the shooting season, and it is a public highway. As I leave the open moors behind, I make my way steadily down through some bird-filled woodland, past the Rathburn Hotel, which in 1989 had only recently reopened as an hotel. I'm now heading for the village of Longformacus, an isolated little community hugging the Dye water in the middle of the moors. Be warned, though, that while you will find bed and breakfast here, there is no shop and not even a public toilet. Longformacus House. And as I climb, there are splendid views in all directions. That's Whitchester Guest House where I stayed. A lovely place. The path continues through the woods along the Whiteadder Water. Believe it or not, there's another river nearby called the Blackadder Water. And so to Abbey St Bathans, a little community hidden away in its secret valley. But tourists and walkers and cyclists are encouraged to visit. There's a good youth hostel too, known as the Rest House. If you want to stay there in summer, you really should book in advance, as it's quite small and soon fills up. There's an excellent new wooden bridge here for way walkers. It was erected by a troupe of Gurkha engineers in 1987. I want to go now and talk to a lady who's been living at Abbey St Bathans for years. She's Mrs. Priscilla Todd Hunter. Hello.
Oh, hello, Jimmy.
This is Todd
Nice
Hunter.
to meet you.
Yes, well, I actually missed you the last time I was here. I was through here about, what, 5 years ago.
It must be.
And I missed you
No, it's
then.
more than 5.
Is it?
No, wait a minute. No, it's not, because I've been down here 3.
Ah, that's why I didn't
Yes.
see you. You've only been living here for 3 years.
That's right. I was 35, up at Channabank.
So you had 35 years up at the farmhouse, 3 years down here. You must know the place really well.
Been 38 years at the Abbey altogether.
You must have seen some terrific changes here.
Oh, too many to mention, Jimmy.
For the
When we
better or
first
not?
came here, all these cottages had workers, either for the farm across the road or the forestry or something, and families, you know, there were children here. And my children, I had 3 at school when I came here. They used to come down and play with the other ones down at the old bridge. That's the new bridge. And the men used to meet at the corner and play pitch pennies or kites. And we had a school, a post office, and a bus service twice a week came up from Duns. That's all gone. Now, it's just like everywhere else in the rural areas, depopulation.
So who lives in these cottages now then?
Well, there's one empty, there's 2 holiday cottages, and the boy for the fish farm lives in the one over there, and there's my cottage and the old man in there.
There actually was a St Bathan. He was a cousin of St Columba of Iona, and in the 6th century a Christian settlement was founded here. In about the year 1200, a priory was set up by the wife of the Earl of Dunbar with a prioress and 12 nuns, but that was sacked by the English in 1545. A few centuries later, part of this area was used for hunting by the Earl of Wemyss. Eventually, the mansion house at Abbey St Bathans became a gentleman's residence, and the estate passed through the hands of various families. Today, it's owned by the Dobie family. Mrs. Helen Dobie has known the place since her childhood, but it's her eldest son, Willie, who's now in charge. How big is it to begin with?
It's about 4,000 acres.
And how do you keep a place like this viable these days?
Well, farming is still the main thing, and that's looked after by my brother, who's very keen on sheep and cattle, which is the mainstay of the farming. But in addition to that, we've got to develop everything else that we can. And my speciality is forestry, and we have a sawmill here, cutting a lot of timber, thinning out the woods. And in addition to that, tourism is important. The big house here is at present full of Italians on a language course. And there's also the trout farm.
There's also a good tea room, fine walks through the surrounding woods, and something else at Abbey St Bathans that I am particularly interested in seeing. Abbey Ceramics up at the old schoolhouse, and it's run by Carol Buchan and Peter Lochhead. Carol.
Hello.
Hello. Jimmie McGregor. Peter.
Hello.
How are you? I was told about this place and I felt I had to come and pay it a visit. I didn't realise what a fantastic setup you've got here. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Surroundings are wonderful. Are you both trained potters then?
Yeah.
Where?
It's Aberdeen.
Aberdeen. Oh, that's a long way off. So how did you find yourselves in the borders? What happened?
Well, I suppose we wanted to move down to the country, after spending 4 or 5 years up in the town. And I wrote off to a lot of estates and, various sort of places. And this was one of 2 responses that came back.
I see, yeah. Well, believe it or not, Peter, I used to throw the odd pot myself about 1,000 years or so ago.
Why don't you come in and have a go then?
Okay, why not? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I need a little cutter to bluff it. Be kind, I'm donkey's years out of practice. From Abbey St Bathans, the way meanders across gentle and peaceful farmland until suddenly the A1. It's only in comparatively recent times that this has come to be a major artery between England and Scotland. The road north used to be nearer the coast, and the railway went through a tunnel which became a new cutting when an attempt to enlarge the tunnel caused it to collapse, killing a couple of the workers. My first glimpse of the east coast, looking north to the Firth of Forth and the great bulk of Torness nuclear power station. But Torness is soon lost to view as we enter Pease Dean. This is a piece of wild woodland acquired recently for conservation by the Scottish Wildlife Trust. It's a fine old mixed woodland with conifers and broadleaves, and in summer it also has a wide variety of flowers and is home to a large number of interesting insects, including some quite rare beetles. The sea at last. If you've ever had to struggle for permission to build a small extension to your house, or say a garage in your own garden, you perhaps wonder how something like this gets past the planners. Now, obviously caravanning provides relatively inexpensive and very enjoyable holidays for an awful lot of people. But surely it could be done without ruining the scenery, which presumably is what attracted the people in the first place. I don't know what you think about it, but, well, my own reaction is simply to get past it as quickly as possible. The coastline running southwards is lonely and wild, with Fast Castle clinging to the cliff edge. If you do take time out of your Southern Upland Way walk to come here, take care, as the grass along the cliff edge can be very slippery and really just as dangerous as rocks. The many seabirds, these are mostly kittiwakes here, are an absolute delight. St Abb's Head, a little further south, is more accessible. The elderly or disabled can drive right up to the cliff edge here to look at the birds. There is a wildlife warden to help identify the different species for you, for this is a nature reserve owned by the National Trust for Scotland and run by the Scottish Wildlife Trust. In the early summer, there are thousands of seabirds nesting here. At the moment on the cliff ledges, the most dominant bird is the kittiwake. These are immature birds. There's even the occasional razorbill. The official Southern Upland Way, of course, doesn't go to Fast Castle or St Abb's Head. It follows a route north from Pease Bay past Cove Harbour. In recent years, only a few inshore boats have used this old harbour as their base, so it really is a place where time has stood still. A smuggler's paradise at one time. Torness Power Station again. I'm afraid you can't escape it. It's not the most appealing of buildings, and it's slapped right in the middle of this fine seascape. At this point, the way turns inland again for its last lap. Walkers welcome, dogs not. Finally, the path dips under the main railway line, and if you make it safely across the A1 again, your objective is this cross adorned by the thistle and the rose. But don't expect applause as you take your last few proud, if sugarly steps across the village square. There's usually no one about. Well, here we are, more than 200 miles from where I started off in Portpatrick on the west coast. This is Coburn's Path and the end of the Southern Upland Way. I must say it's been a tremendous walk for me through a wide variety of countryside. I met a lot of likeable and interesting people and seen lots of great things. I've traversed mountain and moorland, and of course there have been trees and more trees again, maybe just a few too many trees, but that's another story. I've had the opportunity of visiting some of Scotland's great houses. There's a lot of them here in the south. And I've renewed my acquaintance with our great literary figures, or some of them, people like Burns, Scott, Hogg. I found that very interesting too. And of course, everywhere I've walked in the footsteps of history. The whole of the south of Scotland reeks with history. I mean, even this monument here marks the marriage of James IV to Margaret Tudor. And you may remember that away back in Galashiels at the Braw Lads ceremony, we saw that very event being commemorated. But that's pretty well it now. It's been a long trek, but a worthwhile one. And I wonder if you remember that at the halfway point, I felt a wee bit pleased with myself, and I celebrated with a modest cup of tea from my flask. Well, I've saved something just a wee bit more special for this occasion. The whole thing's been really a marvellous experience for me, and it's been great having you along with me. I'm glad you stayed with me. Until next time, Slán Revar. Terrific. I won't put the top on.